going on, everybody? Jeremy Gray here, and today we're going to talk about why I still think the Canon EOS M50 is the best camera to buy for YouTube, even in 2020. Let's get into it. So the Canon EOS M50 came out in April 2018, so it's a little over 2 years old right now, but to me that doesn't really mean much. Now, in my humble opinion, cameras don't really change much over a year or two or even 3. To put this into perspective a little bit, I shot with a Nikon D3S professionally for weddings and other events until 2018. That camera came out all the way in 2009. So it was 9 years old and I was still using it, and it took amazing photographs, and I'm sure it still does today, and it's 11 years old. So just a little perspective for you. It's not quite the same because that's a stills camera. This is more talking about video, but it's still the same universe. So something to note about this camera is its size and its weight. It's absolutely tiny, and that is great for me. It's a selling point because I wanted something that I could still rely on if I don't want to bring my big full frame setup with me to go take photos, and I can rely on the Canon for that. If you need to travel lightweight, having this camera with just the kit lens and like a road video micro in your bag, you're really not going to notice a difference. It's going to save you a ton of space, and if you slap a 22mm lens on it like I have on right now, you're going to get a ridiculously slim and tiny profile. It's just a great little setup. To put that into a little bit of perspective, I chose to bring just this camera with the kit lens and the Canon EOS M50mm and the road video micro, of course, with me on a backpacking trip in Vietnam for 2.5 weeks, and I relied on it. I took all of my stills with this camera, and of course all my videos with this camera as well, and it did not disappoint. I did miss the dynamic range of my Nikon and the plethora of lenses, but I saved a ton of weight in my backpack, and I can't imagine trying to carry around that big full frame setup for that long. Alright, so let's talk autofocus. So I've had this camera for about 1.5 years, and it has not disappointed with the autofocus. I could show you a test, but I'm going to tell you my experience instead, because I've used this camera really non-stop for the last 1.5 years for both video and photography. The dual pixel autofocus for this camera is amazing. It's super reliable, and I know that I'm going to be in focus and it's going to track me and follow me. I really had not too many problems with the autofocusing, especially with video. Now, I have noticed, depending on the lens, the focus can get slower or faster. Like, for example, my focusing with the 22mm Canon EOS M lens seemed to be a bit faster than focusing with the Sigma 16mm lens. Just if I was moving around and it lost focus onto the background to get back to my face, sometimes it just seemed a little sluggish with the Sigma, but honestly, it wasn't anything terrible, especially just for vlogging or in-house videos. Now, do keep in mind, you will lose that dual pixel autofocus if you shoot in 4K, but I'm telling you right now, I have never shot in 4K seriously. I don't see the need to. 1080p is still the YouTube standard in my humble opinion, and I've messed with the 4K, but it's not something I personally need. So if you're looking for a 4K camera, don't buy this camera. 1080p, perfect, and you'll get that amazing dual pixel autofocus. Another little anecdote, something that's super useful, is that when you're shooting something, if you just tap on the screen where you want to focus, it'll follow that subject. So right now, I tapped my face before I started recording this. There's a box around my face, and the box is going to follow me wherever I move, and that's great. So I can rely on that, and if you're tracking a subject, it's usually pretty reliable. Sometimes with quicker things, like I film my dogs or my kids running, it can kind of lose them, but it's really nothing to worry about. It's very reliable. Alright, so now let's get into the image quality of this camera. Now, this is going to rely heavily on the lenses that you choose to use with this camera, and if you're a beginner, I cannot recommend the kit lens enough. The 15-45, it's going to supply amazing results, and it's a really cheap lens, and it usually comes with the camera. I still use that lens all the time. It's a great little lens. It's extremely versatile, especially for making videos for YouTube or vlogging in public or just in-home stuff as well. The kit lens does offer image stabilization, which is great, and you get a pretty decent zoom range. On a full-frame body, the lens would be equivalent to something around like a 25 to 70mm lens, something like that. And that is a really good zoom range. It's not wide enough for some people, but I think it's perfect. If you're looking to upgrade your lens or simply add more to your kit, there are some great lenses out there. Canon doesn't offer anything super exciting for their native EF mount, but I have personally fallen in love with the 22mm f2 lens, which this video is currently being shot on. Now, Sigma has recently released their contemporary line of lenses for the EF mount. That includes the 16mm, 30mm, and 58mm, and all three of those lenses are f1.4, which is going to really help with the Canon M50 subpar low light performance. In my opinion, these three lenses gave the M system the boost that it really needed, since Canon's native lenses were not too exciting for this system. Now, I've only had the pleasure, and I really do emphasize the pleasure, of testing out the Sigma 16mm f1.4, and I have a full review that I'll post somewhere up here, and I really did love that lens. I only had it for a week, but in that week I really got to see how great it is. It's definitely a great investment for anybody looking to stick with EFM system, and you really won't be disappointed with that lens, and I'm sure the other two lenses are phenomenal as well. And of course, you can also buy the EF to EFM adapter and have a pretty endless array of lenses that you can use with this camera, because Canon just has a ton of glass out there in the world, and that's always an option for you. Alright, now I want to bring it back to something that I mentioned earlier, which is shooting in 1080p over 4K. Now, like I said, I still think that 1080p is the YouTube standard, and I really see no reason to shoot in 4K for making videos like this, or just a daily vlog kind of video. The only time I'll consider using 4K is for time lapses. I think it's very useful for that. It does crop in, so I need to be prepared for that. But if I don't mind the crop, shooting 4K for a time lapse will make that time lapse a little bit more timeless. Yeah, timeless. Now keep in mind, 4K files are also going to take up a ton of space on your hard drive or on your SD cards when you're shooting, and it just becomes a pain, honestly. So like I said, 1080p will be more than enough for your average YouTube using, for vlogging or making in-home videos. No one's really going to notice. Most people watch videos on their cell phones anyway. And quick bonus tip, if you export your videos in Premiere Pro or whichever software that you're using that are 1080p, if you export those 1080p videos into 4K like I do, that'll help with the YouTube compression that really just destroys the quality of our videos. Alright, let's talk about stills quality again for just a minute. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I took this camera with me around the world. I've taken it around my hometown. I really put this camera through the ringer with stills images. The raw files that this camera produces are very good. You could do a lot with the edit, and it just looks great in my opinion. On my Instagram, I have a good mix of shots from this camera, shots from my Nikon D750, and my old D3S, may it rest in peace. And no one could really tell the difference from what I've noticed. No one's ever said anything or commented on anything about the quality of images, you know, being different. I don't think really people notice that kind of thing, especially on Instagram. I even have people ask me, how do I get such good photos with the Canon EOS M50? What settings am I using? That kind of thing. And I'm not going to get into super details about that. That will be a different video, so look out for that. But I do want to say that light is going to be your best friend, and with good light and a compelling subject, really anything is possible with any camera. And of course, the age-old saying, it's the photographer and not the camera that makes the story of the image great. So those are my main points about why this camera is so great. A couple other things to note are it does have the mic jack, so you can use an external microphone, which is super great. It does have that fully articulating screen which pops out and flips around, so I can see myself right now and I know that I'm in focus because the boxes are on my face and I can trust that. And it's useful for shooting high or even shooting low. And another great thing is that you can download the Canon app and connect the camera to the app, which means that you can walk away from your camera, have your phone, and take a picture. You can even adjust the exposure on there, and that's super, super useful. And like I mentioned earlier, there is the in-body time-lapse capability, which I use all the time, and I find it very, very useful as well. So let me know down below in the comments what you think, or if you have any questions. Hit that like button if this video helped you out and helped you make a decision. I really hope this video helps somebody out there. And subscribe for future content. That would really mean a lot to me. And if you're curious about any of the gear that I use to make my videos, such as the EOS M50, the Rode Video Micro, lenses, memory cards, whatever, there will be affiliate links down below in the description for everything that I use. Those will take you over to Amazon and give me a small commission if you make a purchase at no extra charge to you. And just remember, everyone, do your best to focus on what you're shooting, not what you're shooting with, because that's going to take you a lot farther. So do your best to worry about the story rather than the gear, and I hope that helps somebody out there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.